Greetings and welcome to this week's episode of UC Weekly News. I'm your host, David Danto. But wait, if you weren't sure, let's hit a name tag button here and show you. I cannot get over how wonderful this cute little feature is from VizRT that you've got in Zoom now. You can get broadcast quality graphics, except I can't really use it because I can only use it for me. I can't use it for my guests. And
Yeah, they need
I
a
have
get they need a get they need a guest mode overlay.
yeah, I have two pretty powerful guests on the show with me today, my Microsoft experts, because we're going to have a conversation about Microsoft. Kevin, why don't you introduce yourself first, and then we'll go to Tom.
Yeah, well, David, I am super happy to be here. I am Kevin Kieller. I guess I'm a co-founder of Enable UC. I am half consultant, half analyst. And what I just before we dive in, I just want to, note that we are representing three different countries. We've got you, David, holding down the US. I am just outside Toronto representing Canada, and then we got Tom, who will introduce himself representing the UK. I was going to say the EU, Tom, but you guys
No,
have
no, yeah,
decided
yeah.
no, but you're not part of that. But anyway, I think that this is a global UC news. So
Oh, I
I'm
absolutely try. I'm a big believer in diversity of thought. The problem is that we all kind of look the same. I've got to get more people,
uh,
more people of color, more ladies. I've got to try and fill it out as much as I can. But you guys are the Microsoft experts. So Tom, your turn.
Yeah, sure. Hey, everybody. Yeah, thanks for having me on the show again. Tom Arbuthnot, co-founder of Empowering Cloud, and we focus on Microsoft 365, mostly Microsoft Teams, research, enablement, lots of community stuff, podcast, newsletter, all that good stuff.
All right, so before we get into it, I've got a list of like five loose topics that I'm going to ask you guys questions because you're the experts and I just get to be the interviewer. I want to bring something up that I literally just pulled off the shelf from over my shoulder. I'm not quite sure why I still have it. Do you remember the time when Windows 95 was exciting and when you actually could write a book about it and have the information in a book? Could you imagine how hard it would be to publish a book about everything Microsoft now, considering how fast it's changing, and not just Microsoft, all AI, but the idea of putting, print to paper,
Yeah, we used to get
around
we used
this.
to get server products when Kevin and I were more active installing, where you could actually learn the product inside out, and you had about 3 years of being an expert before the next server version came out. That's long gone now.
yeah, no, and I remember like we had for a while we had the world's largest bookstore in downtown Toronto, and I would go. And they had a great computer book section because not all bookstores, they had a few things. But the world's largest bookstore had this giant section. And I would go and like that Windows 95 resource kit. I remember going and I would just buy every single book on any topic that I was interested in because that was kind of, that was your AI. It
Yeah.
was on paper and you'd flip through that and you'd look stuff up, right? You needed all those reference books.
I want to make the point. I'm really beating it up, but I really do want to make the point that we live in a world right now where the things that we are trying to stay on top of, the concept that anybody could actually write them down in a
Mm,
book, that the what's here this week is gone next week in most cases. You could never do a publishing cycle. The idea that we could get software now in a CD-ROM or a DVD-ROM or whatever it is. What is it? A DVD? They're gone. You get pushes, agile pushes every day. So we are living in a different world. And this was the middle of my career. This wasn't the start.
right.
The start of my career didn't have PCs at all. This is the middle of my career. Now the world has gone completely crazy and we do things too quickly and everything's changing too fast. So yes, that's something I wanted to really make sure that everybody realized that happened in our lifetime.
Yeah.
Taking the macro scale from in our lifetime to in the last few weeks, let's talk about some of the events. I know, Kevin, you just got back from Comms V Next, which Tom, you were at last year. Tell us, Kevin, a little bit about what your experience was at Comms V Next. Remind everybody, it's not run by Microsoft, it's run by the community, correct?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a great community event. It obviously is very focused on the Microsoft ecosystem. Um, so great, and deep technical knowledge, right? Because so the audience is, all about Microsoft and, there's 100, 200, 300, 400 level sessions. Um, but I think, one of the things is this year, and Tom will talk about this, the M365 event was just a few weeks before. So I think that, all conferences, I think, are trying to find what their focus is. But
Yeah,
having these two,
it feels like we're
yeah,
in a weird spot for conferences in general, doesn't it?
in
Because
general,
like
right?
we used
Yeah,
to have more specialist conferences, like Comms V Next was specifically for, Skype and then Teams, and it's
right.
widened out in the last few years. Same thing with Commsverse in the UK. M365 Conf is another community conference, but that's really the Microsoft backed one. And that's the very expensive, very well backed kind of thing. I really like what things like Comms VNext and Commsverse are doing because they're much more MVP led, highly technical, grounded in the community. And obviously, there's room for both, but then you've got all the other vendors doing their own, Cisco doing their own, Zoom doing their own. Where does it leave some of the ones that used to bring us all together kind of cross platform?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and there was quite a bit of controversy around that around Enterprise Connect this year, which
right.
Microsoft didn't attend. So, I hope we're cyclical. I hope the generalist conferences will come back, but we're in a real world. I don't think we can support three conferences in 2 months to cover one single subject, and people are not
No.
the budget to travel.
I think
Right.
there's at least two types of attendees as well. I see this at Ignite, the Microsoft conference. Like there are some people that are head down in their job and then they use the conference to catch up on what's been going on. So like for them, like a recap of the last 6 months and what happened and what landed is great. And then you've got other people who are really on top of everything that's changing and they're coming to the conference to hear exclusively new stuff. And it's hard to serve both audiences because some of us like take us three, we're very plugged in. We're only really going to meet people and hear what's new because we know what happened, and other people are using it as a recap, a summary, or an understanding of different areas they don't spend their day in, so they want to know what's new in parallel areas perhaps.
Yeah, I'm going to push back a little bit on that, Tom, because I think that, there is tons of information. I mean, look, Empowering Cloud, you do a great job of keeping everybody up to date on what's new. And so I really think that all the conferences have to, double down on the people interaction because, I think it's the conversations you have, not in the sessions, as good as the sessions were at CommsView Next and some really great deep sessions. Jamie Stark from Microsoft, Heidi Elmore back at Microsoft. So there was some great content, but it was really the before and after and at lunch. Like, so
Yeah, you're right. That is a
every
big
conference,
reason to get together, isn't it? You're right. Like, and
yeah, it's
to your
the
point
hall
of
room. It's the in-between conversations, right?
yeah,
Or
yeah.
over the meet. Yeah. So I think that that's where, for me, if I was running a conference, I would just make sure I allow that people interaction. I don't know exactly how to do that, but whatever you can do to kind of foster that, that's what I think I take away from the conferences.
The white spaces.
Yeah, the white space. Yeah. Allow for that interactivity over the meals or what have you, right? So
Yeah, location plays a big part in that, doesn't it? Because we all go to some conferences where it's in the same hotel, we're all in the same places, we end up in the same bars and restaurants, and other ones where you end up split, city ones where you're all in different locations. So, as you say, it's a hard thing to get, but when you get that, where you all end up at the same hotel bar at the end of the night and all the conversations, that's high value.
yeah,
I don't
Comms
know.
Next is like that, right? Because everybody stays in the same, it's small enough that everybody can stay in the same hotel. And I guess, Tom, you and I are going to be in Commsverse in just
Yeah,
under a month,
similar. It's
right? Yeah.
drink all drinks together. They keep bringing all the speakers together. It's very good.
Well, I don't know if the companies that are behind these conferences, and I don't mean the community, I mean Microsoft and Cisco and Enterprise Connect and
Hmm.
Infocom, I don't know if they quite realize how tight-knit a community we all are. I mean, to a certain extent, the three of us compete with each other, but I would consider you guys friends and associates, and we reach out to each other multiple times a day for projects we're working on together and for projects we're not working on together because again it's that concept all boats rise. If we help each other out, then there's no
Right.
reason not to do that. Now that's I don't have that relationship with everybody, but we're all talking in the background. So when one vendor gives some type of perk to another analyst or expert or invites someone and covers their expenses, we're all talking about it. I don't quite know if they realize that.
No,
Uh,
and the funny thing was, I just, not to kind of be negative, but like, for example, like Microsoft did some great research on this work trend index. They do that every year. I love the research, but they had a briefing on it for the analysts yesterday. And during the briefing, they choose to turn off the chat. And it's like, to your point, David, the analysts, like we're all adults and we all talk amongst ourselves and we like to hear the questions that the other analyst ask. And so for whatever reason, Microsoft says, I'm going to turn off the chat because I don't know what they think analysts
So,
are going to
so, so,
post.
so we all just jump to on a certain platform and have the same chat in WhatsApp or Zoom.
Right, and different, but like Zoom doesn't do that in their briefings. WebEx doesn't do that. I mean, Tom, you bring together some great, talks, and I know you don't record it so that people can like, kind of be honest because you bring some vendors in. But the chat is often the most fascinating part.
Yeah,
So,
the
David,
chat's
to your
fire.
point,
It's we
like this
always leave
is
it
this,
open.
yeah, we all talk amongst ourselves. So if you think by turning off chat to your point, Tom, like we just go on another platform and talk amongst ourselves. So yeah, it is the people for conferences. And I think overall in this world of AI, I think human and authentic interactions are being valued more highly.
All right, so Kevin, in 30 seconds or less, what was the top story news perception thing to come out of CommsV next? And Tom,
Yeah,
I'll ask
so
you the same thing about M365.
Sure.
Yeah, so I mean, not surprisingly, as Tom mentioned, the scope has expanded. AI plays a big role. I delivered a session called How Copilot Lies to You and What You Can Do About It. And that was just intended to be balanced in saying AI, you need to know how to use it. I liked what CommsV Next did as opposed to a keynote. They had a keynote panel. They brought Patrick Kelly, who was with Zoom, and also at CommsV Next, Cisco was there demonstrating their MTRs. So to me, the big takeaway was it's a Microsoft conference, but you got Zoom and Cisco there because increasingly both customers and vendors realize, it is an integrated and interop world that customers are demanding.
Hmm, good story. And Tom, from the Microsoft 365 conference, what was your biggest takeaway from there?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess one of the interesting things is that used to be a very SharePoint centric conference, and now it's much more the whole of M365, including Teams. So there was a lot of team sessions. Ilya had a keynote, a lot of product team there. Kind of big Microsoft M365. It was SharePoint getting agentic skills, and it was co-work and lots of talk of Anthropic. Microsoft is so excited about having Anthropic in Copilot and the kind of model's capabilities. On the team side, the big thing we got was Copilot call delegation. So this is the first public time we've been able to talk about having a voice agent answer Teams calls on your behalf, filter the call, escalate it, book a meeting. That's the first public outing of voice agents in the Microsoft world. And later on, just a couple of weeks later, we heard about the voice agents in Copilot Studio and voice agents in Dynamics 365. So we on the team side have been waiting to talk voice agents. Some of the other platforms have got their voice agent stories out there. So that was the big takeaway from me. More generally, Microsoft are trying to land Teams as now not just a human to human platform, but an agentic platform in the sense of you can engage with your agents. Obviously, everyone's talking AI, but I think Teams has got an interesting shot at being the primary surface most people want to engage with an agent in the same way you see with like OpenClaw and Hermes. People want to use WhatsApp or iMessage. Like in the corporate world, you're in Teams. Maybe you talk to your agent via Teams rather than going to a dedicated app.
Okay. Well, good events, and neither one of you really talked about the idea that just before, I guess just before M365, Microsoft said, "Oh, did we say Surface Hub? Never mind. We're not supporting the Surface Hub anymore." And I don't think too many people really recall that Surface is a brand, the model name that Microsoft tried to launch 3 or 4 different times until they finally got the Surface Hub out there. There was a big table, there were a bunch of
Yeah, the
other.
Vegas casino table with all the
Yes.
games on and stuff.
So
Yeah.
so but they announced that the current Surface Hub is going to be the last one. It's going to go end of sale and then eventually end of life. So are you getting any reaction to that, or do you guys have any reaction to that?
I mean, like I think that this is, Microsoft goes in and they create some devices to kind of prove it can be done. Like this is what Perceptive Pixel from 2013 they acquired. It was super cool. I mean, it was like what 55 inch, they had an 84 inch, but it was super expensive. And, I think then the Surface line, remember, There was Surface Studio, which has been discontinued, Surface Duo, which has been discontinued. I had a Surface Book, which is no longer, Panos Panay was the hardware person at Microsoft. He departed in 2023, I believe. And as part of that, they've started paring back the Surface line, focusing more just on like the Surface laptop. So I think the Surface Hub, it played its role. It proved that these room devices could be important. But now there's this broad ecosystem of devices that are much less expensive than this, very, very expensive Surface Hub. So I'm not surprised, and I don't know. What about you, Tom?
Yeah, it had its own proprietary OS called Team OS, just to be confusing, and the idea was customers would build apps, very interactive, service-driven apps, and that didn't ever really come to fruition. People used it for Kanban boards, and they used it for mind mapping, and like that was it. And then really, it was just a meeting endpoint, and I think that's what we saw. And I haven't had much pushback on customers. I've got a couple of customers that have had them, but they kind of saw this coming. You could, if you pay
Right.
attention, you're spending that kind of money on Microsoft gear, you know what's coming. And as Kevin said, you've got great devices from, Logi, Cisco, Neat have all got boards now with interactive capabilities. We're not like for like in terms of what you could do on a Surface versus a Microsoft Teams room, but we do have a browser on Teams room now, certainly on Windows, maybe on Android in the future. So you can build apps, web apps, that is. But yeah, it just didn't seem to come to fruition that people would build line of business interactive apps on a board. It was mainly whiteboard meetings and maybe Kanban, maybe mind map.
Yeah. Now, Microsoft has said they're going to support this out the Surface Hub 3 out till 2030. So it's not like it's going to stop working. And, I think to your point, Tom, it was unique. People described it as like a giant iPad, but it was a giant iPad that cost 20 grand. I mean, for the biggest ones, right?
Yeah,
So it was a giant and expensive iPad that I think to your point,
it's a very
people didn't
expensive meeting
really,
endpoint.
yeah, people didn't leverage it to kind of get the return on investment.
Okay. So not as big a deal as I'm thinking. I think that one of the reasons it's going away is because if you're working for Microsoft right now and you're not talking about Copilot, you're not very important. That
I mean,
really is the gist of everything.
TAM's a factor. Like if you're in Microsoft and you're trying to move the needle, the addressable market has to be huge to be a relevant business unit. And also Microsoft have got partners in that space. So it's like, well, actually the partners can take that piece of the puzzle and we'll do a different piece of the puzzle. But yeah, I think you have to be AI something in Microsoft at the moment.
And that leads to the next topic that we were going to talk about, which is Microsoft released some numbers around the users of what's the version of Copilot? This is the paid Microsoft 365 version of Copilot. They said
Yeah,
like 80 million users.
Microsoft 365 Copilot. The naming's terrible here. The free version or the included version is Microsoft 365 Copilot Chat, and the paid version is Microsoft 365 Copilot. But it's the $30 a month list per user per month, like Microsoft 365 Copilot.
And 20 million users, is that a lot? Do we like that? Is that a
I
good
mean,
Well,
if it was one of us in our business, we'd be quite happy. But by Microsoft terms, it's quite a long way below their 450 million user base. They've had the last number we had 15 million, so significant growth in not much time. I think the last number was it 6 months ago, Kevin? Maybe a little bit less. Um,
yeah. That was 15 million, which was 3.3% of the paid commercial Office or
yeah,
M365 seats. Now it's whatever, 5%. Um, and I think, Microsoft is, I mean, there's some, pretty aggressive discounting programs. They introduced this E7, so which includes Copilot. I think one of the reasons behind, I wrote a detailed article on nojitter.com looking at it. I think one of the reasons is if you bundle it into this really expensive E7 SKU, which is $99 per user per month, maybe you bury the $30 per user per month Copilot that you only got, in this case, 5% of the people to step up to. So,
Hold on, because we're going to come back to E7 and E7 costs.
okay.
Let's stick with the 20 million on Copilot and
Yeah.
the $30 per user per month.
So I think that yeah, Microsoft is working hard. They're discounting it to allow people to, adopt it. So I don't think everybody in the 20 million paid that $30 per user per month, but this is a clear big focus of Microsoft, and obviously they have a lot of work to do because some of the competitors are including these capabilities at no additional cost. And so they really have to prove that, okay, $360 per year. I mean, it should be a no-brainer if you teach people how to use it. But clearly, I mean, when you have 10,000, 100,000 people and the CFO does 100,000 or 10,000 times $30 per month, that's a big number. And, I think that that sticker shock is stopping a lot of organizations from moving forward with it, clearly, because it's only 5% adoption.
Yeah, I think we're also only just seeing some of the really powerful agentic capabilities coming through. If you go back and look at some of the launch videos, they're like, look, editing in Word and it can send emails and it like it's taken us a long time and the Anthropic models have given it a massive shot in the arm. Cowork is Microsoft Copilot Cowork is genuinely really impressive, but that's still in frontier. So Microsoft were out early and fast on this, arguably probably a bit too early and quite aggressive as Microsoft tend to be with like this is going to change everything. Microsoft are always ahead of the curve. I remember when we were talking about OCS 2007 R2 as like no more phones and everything's going to change and took the pandemic to do that. So
Promises are ahead of the curve, is what you're saying.
yeah, just market expectations as well. They think everybody is ahead of where they are in terms of how they think about technology, how they adopt it. They're a technology company, but I think Microsoft will have to continue to deliver really understandable ROI. If you look at Cowork and see it send emails for you, delete emails, schedule tasks, suddenly you're like, oh, okay, now I can clock where $30 of value comes from, as an example.
But I
Well,
think,
let me.
Tom, oh, I was going to say, Tom, don't you think that in this case, I mean, Microsoft is probably subject to more direct competition because, I mean, so you got the Anthropic model. So first of all, they don't operate inside the EU data boundaries. So
Yep.
they're turned off by default in the UK and EU. And so that's a bit of a problem. And then you've got, people who tried the Copilot agent in Excel and were definitely underwhelmed because the first version, quite frankly, this is a technical term, it sucked.
Yeah,
Um,
they've burnt some bridges by pushing things early
right.
and being like, "This is amazing," or showing demos of PowerPoint slides being created and we weren't there. Yes, and I think there's an immense amount of competitive pressure from OpenAI
Right.
and Anthropic. And Anthropic just last week GA'd their plugins for Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook. So they're a partner and they are heavy competition as well.
Well,
And
and like I'm doing some work on a white paper that's looking at, the different products and I mean, Copilot, now they got this, like when you do a prompt, it says lining things up, which I just think is a delay loop. Like, I don't know what it's lining up, but it is, I mean, and maybe there's more guardrails or what have you, but it's relatively slow, right? I mean, it kind of feels a little bit slower. And so I think Microsoft, they're a great company, they're a big company, they got a lot of smart people, but I think, they hopefully are feeling some competitive pressure because,
I'm
I met a
sure
lot of people at
I'm
ComC
sure they
Next
are.
that said, "Oh, you mean I should go back and try the agent in Excel?" So, there's not a lot of people that's, we spend time circling back because this is what we do, but a lot of people try it and then they move on. You
Es-
go to the restaurant and
Especially
get food
business users,
poisoning.
like
Yeah,
genuine business people are not spending time playing. Like you've got one shot with them to be like, does this work? No, it doesn't. Or I move back. I've got things to do. So yeah, very hard to get the real business users, knowledge workers, whatever you want to call it, like the non-IT people
right.
to experiment. And also a general AI problem is it gets you 80% of the way there, which to some of us is like, oh, amazing. I can now do the 20, I can get much more done. But to a bunch of people, it's, well, it didn't do it properly or right. I might as well just do it myself and do it properly. So I agree with everything you're saying. There's some mental shift there, but definitely they did burn some bridges with like, here it is, have a go. Oh, it's not ready yet. Now we're on GPT-5, have a go. Now we're on 5.5. Now we're on Anthropic. But yeah, I think Microsoft are a machine. They will keep pivoting and playing and tuning, I'm sure.
Well, let me be
custom.
devil's advocate with another technical term because I want to get to one last subject over here. I don't know if you've heard this term, probably not so much in the UK, maybe in Canada. The technical term is chutzpah. I don't know if you've ever heard that word before. If not, look it up or ask your
Yeah,
AI.
yeah.
But to come out with $100 E7 and not include the co-pilot in it and make that be extra, that took a
No,
little bit of chutzpah. That took a
well,
little
no,
bit.
no. Copilot is included in the E7. What's not included in the E7 is the Teams Premium, right? So E7 has the new Agent 365, which is $15 per user per month. It's got the E5, everything E5. It's got Copilot, which is $30, and then it's got some Entra kind of stuff, which was $12 or whatever. But so theoretically, if you pay $99, maybe you're getting Agent 365 for free. But I think it takes chutzpah to, like, you can't get people to pay $30 a month more.
So
So
just
what you
so just
say
make it
is,
bigger.
yeah, and but I think it's sort of brilliant because I think they'll probably drive more people from E3 to E5 because now the E5 is the middle tier, right? So a lot of us go in and we're like, we're not going to buy the most expensive, we're not going to buy the least expensive. Maybe we'll buy the middle, which now is the E5, which that would be a good news story, even outside of the Copilot piece. And
Oh, it's the
so,
that's a genius thought, Kevin. It's the coffee menu thing. Like have the extra large so everybody buys the one in the middle.
Yeah, there is
right,
no
right.
more
So
small, right? Everything is medium, large, and extra large.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now Microsoft 100% should get rid of the Teams premium license. Like they've taken features out of it. It never made sense. And to not include that inside the Teams premium
So
the
we've
Teams
we've got Wendy
7.
who owns that on Teams Fireside Chat in July, Kevin. So you'll have to come to that
Okay,
one.
there you go.
Well,
I put that
one of the things that I've recommended on more than one webcast recently is that Microsoft should go back to its roots around this idea of dev and prod. Production for most companies should be nothing that's changing. It should be things that we can train, that we can tell people about, that we can actually print, maybe not books that are bound, but at least PDFs and flyers. And if it puts Microsoft in a position that they feel like they're behind all the other big AI engines that are developing all the time, that can be a dev environment that you can invite people to, but it shouldn't affect your day-to-day business. And I think we've kind of lost that in terms of IT nowadays, where we are throwing so many changes agile into production that people have started to shrug and say, I don't know, I can't figure out where the button is this today.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
Tom, I'm gonna defer to you because you're the expert. Um, Microsoft is changing their release thing, right? They're at least renaming it like Frontier
yeah,
and
no, there's some
uh,
technical changes coming to the change program. So the way they run changes at the moment, they have kind of public preview, they have a kind of test release, and then they have a general release, and they're moving to Frontier. So you can select a group of users that are pre-GA, that's Frontier. You have standard release, which will still be at a pace, but like that's when everything's GA and supported, and then they'll have deferred, which is 30 days after standard release. So yeah, they're changing some of that. Starts with the Copilot stuff. It will move through the other workloads, but it's still going to be.
pretty fast.
We're in this new world. Like, and I think to counter your challenge, David, is they do have a set of customers that would be quite happy to stick on a server version and train for 2 years and then change a version. We saw a lot of that, but they also have the competitiveness of look at a Zoom. Like if the pace Zoom changed and added features when it needed to be competitive, they couldn't have done that with Skype. So they need to be agile. Now look at Anthropic and look at OpenAI. Anthropic has nearly a billion users using AI. Granted, 95% of them on the free tier, but still basically a billion users. And then Anthropic is releasing basically a new feature every other day. They fear the innovative part of the company will slip away to a new platform, and that's a slippery slope. So they can't be too slow, and they definitely have pain of moving fast as well.
But I'm gonna push back a little bit because I think it's a little different when Microsoft like changes UI things a little too frequently. And I think, if you look at Zoom, they have fast pace, but I feel they take a few deep breaths before they push something out there. And I feel like Microsoft doesn't, I don't know. It's like, when they say sleep on it and send the email in the morning, I feel Microsoft says, hell no, I'm going to send it before I go to bed. And then in the morning they go, oh my God, I better move this button around. So I think they should slow down the pace a little bit or just have a slightly more review cycle, because the thing is so many people are using the Office tools.
Mm,
And these people, they don't want to be on the frontier. They wake up Monday morning, they got a meeting, and if they can't figure out how to share content or start the meeting, this is not a good way to start a Monday morning. And I think, Microsoft, when you have a large install base, there's 450 million people who are every day living in the Microsoft 365 tools, going a little slower for the vast majority of users, I think you would have a lot of more happy people in the offices. So
Well, let's
yeah,
bracket this conversation by going back to the book with a story. I know you said that when you were at Comsby Next, you had Patrick Kelly there with you, who is one of the experts in Zoom, who wrote the book, the actual hardcover recipe book on how to use Zoom. And when Zoom's latest version just came out, 7.0.2, I believe, I sent him a note saying, "What happened to my taskbar on top? Now apparently I can only get it on the side. Is that true?" And it took him about 2 hours, and he finally got back to me in Zoom chat and said, "Yeah, it looks like that for me too." So I think we're moving a little too fast for everybody here, not just Microsoft. I think it's the society's moving too fast. I think we need to stop and smell the roses a little bit.
I think that's always good advice, David.
Okay, so the two of you will be at Comsverse together, correct? Coming up in the next couple of
yep,
weeks. Tell us
yeah,
about
really,
where we can see you there.
yeah, really excited for that. So yeah, awesome to have Kevin over for that one as well. So that is another community-driven event in the UK. Some great sessions. Mark and the team do a really good job of picking like really good speakers. And it used to be team-centric, but now kind of wider into the M365 stack and lots of Copilot conversation, lots of AI conversation. So yeah, really looking forward to that. I'll also be doing a private customer conversation there and a customer panel in one of the keynotes. So that should be fun. Kevin, are you
Very good.
speaking? What are you doing?
Yeah, no, I'm speaking. I've got two sessions. One I'm delivering on, Copilot and kind of how to get the most out of it. And then with another gentleman, Tristan Gayford, who works with EY, we're talking about more how AI is helping do administrative type of work. So more for IT pros saying, hey,
Nice.
Copilot's coming for your job as well. And but more it's around how you can kind of leverage this. And obviously EY being a huge multinational company, there's some great
Yeah, not many bigger. That's a great conversation.
yeah,
And
yeah.
when is
So,
that, gentlemen?
that is June, I want to say June 23rd and 24th, I think. It's
You put us on the spot there with no prep.
no, I think that is. Yeah, yeah. That's it's
I can always edit it in. All right. So then before you're at that event, I will be June 17th, 18th, 19th at Infocom, where Ilya Bookstein is going to be doing one of the keynotes, and Espen Loberg from Cisco is doing one of the other keynotes. And this is not a conference that typically had keynotes. So I mean, I'm sure they did, but it was typically, like some magician talking about why it's nice to have fun with magic or something. It was never really on topic pieces. So again, these conferences are morphing, but I will be in Las Vegas for that the week of June 17th for a week. And I know I won't see the two of you guys there, but that's the point of having a big community. We all go attend different ones and swap and share and see what's going on. So Kevin, give us the Kevin Kieller story. How can we get in touch with you?
yeah, so on LinkedIn, I've been told that I publish a few things on LinkedIn, so look me up. Yeah, and increasingly, I talked about before just the interop piece, whether you're using Zoom or Microsoft stuff or Cisco or, OpenAI and Anthropic stuff. I think increasingly, customers are wanting to put things together. So I'm kind of writing about the good, the bad, the ugly, and kind of trying to do that.
Very nice. And Tom, you?
Yep, main jump off point is empowering.cloud. That's where the community is, all our research, the newsletter, and teamsinsider.show is the podcast.
Kevin and Tom, thank you very much for joining me this week. And thank you guys as you're watching the show, as you always do. I appreciate it. We will be back next week with another one. Until then, take care.